Today we're going to talk about properties. So properties of addition and multiplication are, in algebra, properties are statements that are true for any numbers. So for example, the expressions 3 plus 8 and 8 plus 3 equal the same thing, right? 3 plus 8 equals 11, 8 plus 3 also equals 11. And there's a property that tells you that this is true. Okay, so the commutative property of addition is the property that tells you that this is true. If you change the order of the numbers, you still have the same answer. So that's called the commutative property of addition. Okay, 3 plus 8 also equals 8 plus 3. The next property is called the commutative property of multiplication. So the same is true for multiplication. If you switch the order of the numbers that you're multiplying, you still get the same answer. And remember what the answer to a multiplication problem is? Begins with a P, product. So the commutative property of multiplication says that, say you had 8 times 3, that has the same answer as 3 times 8. Either way that you order the numbers, you still have the same answer. 3 times 8 is 24, 8 times 3 is also 24. Okay, the next property is called the associative property of addition. So what that is the way in which the numbers are grouped does not affect the answer. So, for example, if you had grouping symbols like parentheses, and you had 2 plus 4 plus 6, and then you had this written a different way, like 2 plus, and then the grouping symbols were around the 4 plus the 6. When you add them up, according to the order of operations, when you evaluate these, both of them will still equal the same thing. 2 plus 4 is 6. Bring down the rest. 6 plus 6 equals 12. 4 plus 6, 10, plus 2. We're going to bring down the rest. Oops, sorry. 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 2, still equals 12. So you're just changing the order, but because it's all addition, even if you change the order with the grouping symbols, you still get the same answer. Okay, so that was the associative property of addition. There's also an associative property of multiplication. So addition and multiplication. Just like addition, if you change the grouping and the order of the way that the numbers are written, you still get the same answer. So 6 times 2 times 4. And it's only when you're adding and multiplying, because if you had some other operations in here, this wouldn't be true. Okay? Okay. And there's also something called the identity property. So it's any number, when 0 is added to it, it still equals itself. So identity, just remember that it holds its identity. So identity property is any number plus 0 equals that number. So x is going to represent our number. Any number plus 0 still equals that number. So x plus 0 equals x. Okay, and now there's also a multiplicative identity, and that means that any number times 1 equals itself. So the multiplicative identity property is any number times itself equals that number. So for example, 8 times 1 is still going to equal 8. And you guys already know this information, but now you're learning about the properties they're like the rules of why this is possible because of these properties. There's one more, the multiplicative property of 0. So any idea what that would mean? I'm just going to abbreviate here. Property of 0. What would that mean, knowing all of these so far? So any number, say 9 times 0 is going to equal what? Any number times 0 is going to equal what? Right, 0. Okay, any variable times 0 is going to equal 0. And remember, a variable would be x, y, z, any letter that represents a number in math. Okay, so you're going to be given some expressions, and you're going to be asked which property, or they're actually statements, and you're going to be asked which property is represented by each statement. So, for example, if you had a statement like this, 3 plus 7 plus 4 equals 7 plus 4 plus 3. Which property would tell you that this is true? That on either side of the equal sign, these are going to be the same. You just rearrange the order that the numbers are written in, but they're still equal. 3 plus 7 is 10, plus 4 is 14. 14 equals 14. Which one of these properties? Right, the commutative property of addition. Okay, because it's just you change the order and they're still the same. So for example, 2 plus 4 equals 4 plus 2. Okay. The next one is a number times 6, remember x represents a number, times 5 equals 6 times a number times 5. Okay, the grouping symbols have changed where they are, and the order of the numbers have changed. But this side is still going to equal this side. So which property would that be? What operation is this? Right, multiplication. So, and it's involving grouping symbols. So the way that I remember this is that whenever there's grouping symbols, those numbers are being associated. So those are the associative properties. So this would be the associative property of multiplication. Okay, because you're multiplying and you're associating the numbers just in different places. Okay, but they're still equal. So you can multiply in any order if it's all multiplication. Your answer will still be the same. Okay? Okay, how about something like this? 0 times 12 equals 0. Which property is being shown here? Okay, what's the operation? Multiplication, right? Okay, so, and it's equaling 0, so clearly it's the multiplication property of 0. Okay, the multiplicative identity, I'm going to give you an example of that. So that would be something like 9 times 1 still equals 9. That is the multiplicative identity. Any number times 1 still equals itself. Okay? The other identity property is just the identity property, and it's just 0 getting added to any number or exponent, or variable, is still that number or variable. Okay? Okay, so we're going to also talk about simplifying algebraic expressions. So remember how I was saying that whenever there's a variable in an expression, it becomes algebraic. So if there's a variable and you're doing math, it means it's algebra, or algebraic. So I'm going to erase these, and these are on my wall above me on the red poster, and they'll be there all year, so you can refer to them. Right up there. Okay, so to simplify an algebraic expression means to write it in a simpler form. Okay, you can't solve it. Remember we were talking about evaluating expressions. You're basically simplifying it, but you're not solving because there's no equal sign. So when you're solving, that'll be an equation. You'll be solving an equation because there'll be an equal sign. When you're evaluating or simplifying, you're just condensing it into the most simplified version of the expression. Okay, so for example, if you have k plus 2 in grouping symbols, like this, k plus 2 plus 7. Okay, so k represents a number, right? But we don't know what it is, so we can't solve this. There's no answer here because we have no idea what k equals. But we can simplify it because of the associative property of addition. So we can change things around and we can still add these all together. So what do you guys think that you could do to simplify this? What could you add? Right, the 2 and the 7. 2 plus 7 equals 9. Bring down the k. This is the simplified version of k plus 2 plus 7. Just k plus 9. Okay, another example would be 5 times b times 9. Okay, using one of these properties that you just learned, you can simplify this algebraic expression. So this is a d, it represents a number, but you don't know what it is. So that's not going to go anywhere. But the 9 and the 5 you can still multiply, because remember, regardless of the order that you multiply all of these in, you're still going to get the same answer because of the associative property of multiplication. Okay, so what is 9 times 5? Right, 45. Okay, and then remember how to write, we talked about this in the last couple days, how to write a variable and how it's multiplied by a number. What do you do with it? Do you have to write times d? What's a more simplified way of writing it? Right, 45d. That doesn't mean if d equaled 2 that this would be 452. Okay, if d equaled 2, this would be 45 times 2. Okay, the d just represents a number and it's being multiplied. Automatically you know it's being multiplied if it's next to the number and it's a variable, whether you know what it equals or not. Okay. Okay. Let's see, get out a piece of paper and see if you guys can simplify this algebraic expression. Okay, and we'll go over the answer in a minute. And then we're going to start the classwork on page 46 after this. And we will do 16 through 36 even. Okay, did anybody simplify this? 12 times 10 times z? Right, 120 z. That would be simplified.